Hi, I want to make a video on the subject of rationalization and how we often trick ourselves into thinking um, that what we do is worth it, even if after we've done it, we found out it wasn't worth it. Because we obviously can always rationalize with saying it's all over. I wouldn't do it again, but I would, because I obviously did it this time. I recognize. Anyway, so it's about delusions of making you think it's worth it before and after deprivation and achieving nothing. Those are the notes I have. So delusions of making you think it's worth it. Um, so obviously beforehand, you can make a rash decision thinking something's worth it or not worth it. Even from an experience or knowing that something you like or don't like. Learning from mistakes or recognizing a risk in certain circumstances. You can make decisions that you obviously can recognize that there's certain outcomes likely to happen. To a certain extent, generally speaking, you can understand to a certain extent that you, even though you can't describe it perfectly, you can describe it saying if you do this, you could break your leg, even if you don't know exactly where you'll break your leg or whatever this or that is. Those distinctions don't matter. You broke your leg, and generally speaking, we can describe the leg, and it breaking is breaking your leg as opposed to exactly where you broke your leg. You broke your leg, and that's all that matters. We can obviously, when we're fixing the problem, reality, we are fixing the problem as best as we can based on the way that we're living, not the way that we're living, but the level that we're living on. In reality, the existence of fixing your leg, the circumstance of fixing your leg is the description of reality interacting and causing that problem to have more substance and more description beyond which is created by beyond our description and creating reality. Reality is creating itself. Our words mean less than our hands interacting with the wound in our leg. Our words only mean something between making these other interactions happening. Our words mean nothing. Our interactions mean more. It's about these words causing interactions between something that happens. Um, and to a certain extent, language has an effect on these delusions where we think things are worth it before and after. And it comes down to ego as well, and just living with the delusion of life. But back to the example I was saying real quick. Yes, um, we don't need to describe things exactly the way that they are. Doesn't mean anything because there's no exact way of describing them, because the description doesn't exist beyond just vocal cords interacting. The description to something doesn't exist. There's just a mutual understanding that we can describe objectively, mutually understanding a certain circumstance to a certain extent, and that certain extent, even though we can describe it as something objective, doesn't mean anything beyond just a mutual understanding. My word is a different thing than describing a broken leg. Where it's broken doesn't mean anything. Me fixing the leg describes exactly where me fixing my leg, me existing, my interaction existing of fixing my leg in reality exists, and I'm fixing that leg in a certain a way, interacting with the environment, interacting with reality. Reality is in a certain way. I'm speaking, I'm describing something, I'm fixing it with my hands, and this hands is what means more than anything than my description of reality. So I fix my leg, and that interaction of reality explains itself. It's fixing itself. It's describing itself. Me describing exactly how many inches or how many contrived way I could describe where exactly it's broken or this or that or the other thing. Every single nuance, X, Y, Z axis, and describing every single photon in existence, describing every single circumstance doesn't mean anything. Reality, me fixing my leg describes itself. It's existing, and this is just a form of getting those thoughts across. And there's objective ways of describing something, generally speaking, even though we can't necessarily do it. It's about a mutual common consensus of understanding certain circumstances. Um, and that's really all we can do. Doesn't matter where it's broken. Me fixing it is all that matters. That's another distinction I want to make. It doesn't matter in describing the reality. It's about making this value machine. I broke my leg. I'm fixing the problem. I want to experience this experience. My psychology, my projection only means something because of this value thing. This intake, this experience, it means something. It's created by reality, but this value thing means something in its own way. Um, and this logic machine only means something because there's value here to interact with the environment. And it's about fixing my broken leg and the value of the broken leg based on my psychology of satisfying some kind of desire, some kind of deprivation. So that's another distinction. Um, so we don't need to know exactly where the cut is, um, but we don't need to describe every single circumstance. of you breaking your leg or whatever it is. Your description doesn't mean much beyond the description, that it exists in a certain way, mutual understanding, and yeah, um, it's kind of losing track, um, but it's happening a certain way regardless. It doesn't mean much beyond the way that it's happening. And I'm just trying to remember the other thing I was saying. But yes, essentially that's really all that's happening. Description doesn't mean much other than another interaction that's existing, and reality explains itself. And that goes to the idea that I wanted to mention. And if I remember anything more on that subject, I could always go back to them. That is a simple way of a mechanism of psychology and how we rationalize what we do. A person can rationalize beforehand, and afterwards they can rationalize it with saying, oh, now it's over, therefore I feel like I could probably get away with doing it again, like a murderer, a serial killer doing it, and they rationalize it, I'm not going to do it anymore, but then they can rationalize it to themselves afterwards and say, I can do it again. You think it's worth it beforehand, and then you go through it, and then all of a sudden, it's over now, therefore I can use that as a rationalization for me doing it again. I'm scared, oh, but I'm going to do it anyway, but then I knew it was bad, but I'm going to do it again because I already did it, and it's already over, but it'll happen again, but I know it'll be over again, but obviously that's not always the case. So it's a very simple idea. It's just rationalization, and in the end, you're not achieving much of anything. Obviously, everything we do is just an intangible. It doesn't mean much of anything. It's just leading from me to do something else. It's just another interaction leading to some other interaction. Interaction describes itself. I'm describing the interaction. The interaction is me talking. It doesn't mean much beyond that. It's really all we are. We're just bumping into each other, and that's what we're doing. We bump into each other. We have a notion of accomplishing something only so we can bump into something else, different or the same thing again. We're just doing it to okay, now what? Again. Okay, I want to do that again. I want to do it again. That's all we're doing. We're having little feelings. Our feelings matter, but our feelings are no way of rationalizing our existence. They're no way of rationalizing, making any meaning out of this existence that we're experiencing in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't mean anything. Feelings mean everything when it's bad, but mean nothing when it's because all we're doing is escaping a negative and doing the same redundant thing over and over again, just satisfying the same things, running away from the same things, chasing the same things, running away from the same things, running around in a circle. That's exactly what we're doing. Simple, 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 easy, easy. Don't insult your own intelligence by not getting it. It's easy. Very easy. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Jesus. Anyway, yeah, I think this is a concept everyone can understand based on personal experience, where a person blindly goes into doing something, and they rationalize after they've done it, even though it wasn't necessarily a good thing, by saying it's over now, then I can do it again now. And that's essentially all we're doing in life. It's just based on this biological mechanism controlling us with physical addictions, forcing us into doing certain things because our life depends on it. And if we don't do it, we'll obviously be in some kind of deprivated state, prolonged usually deprivated state, if we don't do these things to satisfy these things. So it's about that, or we have a long, slow death, and it's keeping us in this game by that way, or causing us to overcome some kind of psychological problem by just letting us end it all with a gun or with a knife. We have to overcome it psychologically more that way, but also psychologically and overcoming it in other ways. Instantaneous death can be just as scary as a quick death, as a slow death, because instantaneous death obviously is scary. People would sometimes rather die slowly. But then again, there's no rationalization before that. There's no, that's their end. And that's another way of describing rationalization. Beforehand, they do it, and afterwards, there's no way for them to realize that they would regret it, because they're already dead. So that's another way of describing certain circumstances. They don't learn the lesson. They're dead. It's about making someone learn their lesson and seeing if that can deter against something greater, some kind of greater harm in the future, some kind of greater prevention. And if someone's dead, they can't learn their lesson or can't recognize something that they could have done to make something better in the long run. So, achieving nothing. Yeah, that's really it. Um, I think I may have wanted to mention something else that I briefly mentioned on earlier in the video, but I can't necessarily remember on it. I mentioned it, I think, thoroughly enough. I mean, I may have mentioned this very, very minutely, but I think I got the point across. I think you'll catch it somewhere. I just can't remember right now. So, thank you, and until next time, bye.